Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Horse Geeks podcast, where we look at horses and riding from the inside out. I'm Kirsten Nelson, professional horse trainer, and with me is my good friend, compatriot, Deborah Merrow, certified Alexander Technique instructor. So, our last podcast, we were talking a little bit about these uncomfortable realizations and how that is, it's just an unavoidable part of progress and growth is when you smack right into like suddenly knowing something that you didn't know before, and how
Mhm.
that can be kind of uncomfortable and internally confronting. Like we have to adjust our paradigm sometimes and look
Right.
at things completely differently than we ever thought of before. And so with that, kind of wanted to continue that conversation with the topic being thresholds. Because to me, thresholds are what dictate the speed or the rate of progress.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
and we can talk about thresholds for the rider and the
Mhm.
rider's body, as well
Mhm.
as for the horse. And I think with horses, until we learn to really read the energy in the moment and the body language and look at the posture and look at how our horse is coordinating both in body and mind to do this thing that we're asking them to do. And if they can't do it, we're going to be met with resistance. And that resistance is a threshold. It's
Right.
sometimes our horse telling us, I don't understand. I can't do it. I can't do it while I feel stable. I'm not sure how to do it. It brings up an old memory of fear for the horse that has nothing to do with, the current relationship, but the memory of something is very real to a horse. So,
Right.
so thresholds are just super interesting because when we learn to read them non-verbally, right?
Right.
And that's what you do with a human body. When
Mhm.
you're doing Alexander technique instruction, you can't dump all the information you know is possible in one session.
You want to,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
never know where that threshold is,
That's the
you know?
unique part.
Yeah. Yeah,
That,
and it's so unique, and I've seen so many people in their own bodies, and we've talked about this. It's kinda like there's the plastic white bag, the horse is spooking at it, and our tendency is to drive them towards it, and I might have a client that just says, "Well, just get me there." And, the body is just saying, "It ain't gonna happen today."
yeah. Yeah, because I think it's like bodies are so complex that there's
Mhm.
layers. It's more like sort of going up a winding staircase. It's not a direct climb up a ladder. It's like you kind of meander your way through change because authentic change is a big deal to a body. It
I think that's
changing,
so key. Authentic, healthy change, not change to get to where you think you need to be.
right, because we don't even
Yeah.
really have a clear picture when we
Right.
when we start, especially with changing physical coordination, which is a very strong habit in the nervous system. So when I'm working with riders, we're changing the physical coordination and habits related to how you use your feet in the stirrups, how you sit in the saddle, how you organize your axial skeleton, how you use your hands, your arms, your reins, and all of that. Like once we have a habit, the efficiency of a habit is we don't have to spend any mental energy to think about it. And so
Right.
changing a habit, all of a sudden, I run into all of these mental, emotional, and physical
Good
thresholds
point.
where it's like
Yeah.
I can't quite pull that coordination together. I can't get my body to do it. And I've just learned there's no use me feeding somebody with a shovel full of information if it's not integrating into the horse's movement or the horse's understanding or the rider's balance or the rider's understanding. It's 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 just going to kind of dissipate into nothingness because that threshold is blocking new information coming in or some change coming in.
Yeah, and I think I was talking to a client yesterday about that, and that's what makes us a little bit different than most out there working with people and horses is that I think, if disagree with me, but I think both of us, instead of looking at the horse or looking at the rider and saying, "What is wrong with you? Why don't you understand what I'm saying?" That we
Right.
step back and we go, "Wait a minute.
Why is this
How do I need to explain this differently to get to the next to get past the threshold or whatever? What am I need to change in my directing this person to help them get to the next thing?"
Yeah, and I think that's how it kind of links into what we talked about last time. As a instructor, teacher, trainer, it's like you come up against that place where um, I always think in terms of horse and rider. It's true equally for both horse
Mhm,
and rider, but that uncomfortable realization moment is a really solid threshold. Like that's a big one.
mhm.
And there's lots of little thresholds that you can kind of work your way around or explain or alter your strategy a little bit
Right.
to get through multiple small thresholds. But that moment of uncomfortable realization is just a big fat threshold. Like that's where you have to take more time.
Right, and I found that if I can give people what I call, and I think I talked about this last time, is more tools in their tool belt to try,
Hmm.
even with their own bodies, that it's not just like, "Oh my god, I'm slamming up against something, go into extension or shut down or whatever," but, "Oh, okay, Deb gave me these tools like check in with my yes joint in my head and are my knees soft?" Just simple things to not make it so overwhelming at that
Ex
moment.
exactly. Exactly. And I think like when people ask me, can you get this, and this done with my horse in 30 days? The truth is, I have no idea because until I start the work, I don't know where those thresholds are. They're invisible
And you
until
don't
they're
know what
not.
you're starting with. Case in point, I had somebody say, "Well, my horse doesn't act like this at home." So
Yeah.
I'm we get that all the time, don't we? "I don't know this horse that just came off the trailer."
Yeah.
So you might be starting, that horse's thresholds are way back at colt starting 101, you know,
Yes.
and people don't get it. They're like, That's not my horse."
Right. And
Yeah.
that's the truth of living bodies that have an opinion
Hmm.
and that think
Hmm.
is that it's a fluid dynamic.
Oh, I like that.
It's not static. Now, on the
And
other
it's
hand,
not in the past or the future. I think that's what we as humans do. We go, "That's not the horse I had yesterday. That's
what's
not the horse
wrong
I
with
want in the
this?
future.
Yeah.
Wrong with this?" And, it's like, well, this is just what we have to deal with right now. This is
Yes.
just it.
Yeah, and that's where
Mm,
I kept pulling back to the basics, like pull back to the basics, because I don't always know why. Let's just take a horse, for
mm.
example. The horse can't explain to me or show me the past. I don't know why the horse is showing me a threshold. But as soon as the energy of anxiety and tension are increasing and my horse is losing calmness, that's one way to recognize a threshold. that this horse is shifting from, yes, I can, into, no, I don't think I can do that. And I'm starting to be afraid if you keep pushing me. And that's the
So,
exact moment that we tend to
yeah,
go to more leverage, more strategies
yeah,
for control, instead of just recognizing my horse is showing me a threshold in this level of energy changing and
right.
shifting. So the horse coming off the trailer that's way more anxious than the horse was normally at home in that environment, if we don't work with that threshold and try to get that energy turned around, then all of the work we do or the training, it doesn't stick because the body's just trying, if the body and mind are going into fear, which is why
Mhm,
you have an increase of fight flight behavior. You have an energy level that's escalating from mild to moderate to extreme, sometimes rapidly. And reading that energy level fluctuation is how we recognize when we're coming up against a threshold that our horse has. And most of the time, we just want to, like the phrases that run through my mind that I hear all the time is like you said, but my horse is fine over here. Why isn't it
mhm,
here? Or
mhm,
this is not how my horse normally acts. I don't
mhm,
know what to do with it. Or why is my horse doing this? Right?
mhm,
Or give me a new strategy to fix my horse.
right.
Right? And so if you really boil it down to the basics, that energy fluctuation is sort of telling us about internal thresholds of confidence,
Mhm,
understanding, right? And so, just like us, when we don't understand, our anxiety or tension level tends to increase. So, it could be something that simple that the horse doesn't know what's coming next. And so,
mhm,
there's anxiety, tension, fear in that unpredictability of being in a new environment.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
so if we just sort of carry on going, I'm just going to saddle, bridle, ride, and do what I do at home, try to blow through that threshold, hoping it's better on the other side. I go, that's one way to do it, but it's kind of a sink or swim situation for the horse and the rider.
I
It
agree.
it might work, but it might also end in disaster.
Mhm,
It's a bigger risk than if we sort of work with the threshold we see. As the energy level is escalating in the horse, how could we bring, what do we need to do? And I literally start trying one strategy after another until I start to see the energy is beginning to shift back towards calmness. That's the horse
mhm.
telling me, yeah, that worked for me. And I never have any idea. I have, like you said, tools. I have a lot
Mhm.
of concepts, I have a lot of strategies, but I never know which one is going to work in that exact situation. I have
Yeah,
to
and
read.
I think a big paradigm shift is to what I see with a lot of people is they get sucked into what's
It,
going on with the horse. And, with my work, finding that it doesn't help, tell me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't help that horse if I go to that same anxiety level that the horse is at.
nobody's
I have
thinking
to go
anymore.
back. Hmm?
Nobody's thinking anymore.
Yeah. So we're all in an emotional state. And if I can give people Alexander technique tools of grounding or whatever you want to call it, but just to bring it back to sanity within the body. I mean, I know that energy transfers down the lunge line, the lead rope, whatever tool you're using.
Well, and I think that's really like just talking about reading energy as a threshold
Mhm.
indicator.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the few things people actually pay attention to. And so as soon as we have a tool in our little human hand, we don't think we need to pay attention to the energy because we've got the leverage and control. And so we're going to make the horse obey. We're going to get our lazy horse to move his butt. We're going to, get control over our anxious horse. We're going to use our tools and use our training tasks, so to speak, to
Mhm.
make the horse do what we want despite how they feel, or despite like not even factoring in the energy escalation of the horse that's right in front of our face. We don't see it because we're too busy thinking about our leverage, our tools, our training strategy, our training program. Here's what we do. And so we're not really recognizing a lot of times. It's something I have to point out to a lot of people. This is a threshold. Your horse is telling me right this moment.
Right.
My energy level is leaving the calm pool and headed into rougher oceans, rougher conditions. And
Mhm.
so at that moment, if I'm paying attention to just the energy, and that's only sort of one indicator we can watch is the energy of my horse moving towards calmness or away from calmness in some way. And as it's moving towards, that's the horse showing acceptance and understanding for whatever we're doing. Doesn't matter what we're doing.
Right. And it could be real basic, like putting on the halter.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it to me, it starts there because I think as humans, and what I like to work with people is that how do we transfer that goal, which we've talked about before? Okay, my goal is to get to the arena and walk, trot, canter, but I'm having problems catching my horse, who is
Yeah, when we
usually
talked about
normally easy to catch. So people have a really hard time going, what they usually say, what's the matter with you? I've got to
right,
get to the ring,
right.
instead of
Or
going, oh, look what we're dealing with today. Okay.
and I got to tell you, it's like I have a loose training plan in my head, even with a horse in training that I'm working with
Right.
every day. I have some idea of what we're going to work on and why, and where the horse is at normally, but my plan takes a left turn really frequently,
Hmm.
or takes a step back really frequently, or sometimes advances farther than I expected really frequently, right? So
Hmm.
I'm sort of, if I'm really working with, if my intention is to empower the horse to feel safe, feel comfortable, that always gives me a good horse. That's my primary intention. And then I have the goal of, I need this horse to have a good walk, trot, canter, under saddle, left turns, right turns, and be safe to ride. Like those are my goals,
Right.
right?
Right.
But how I get there is my intention is to build trust, build self-confidence in the horse, right? Take away fear, take away discomfort. So when I'm training
Hmm.
for movement, the horse doesn't know where I'm going towards this theoretical biomechanical ideal. The horse just
Right.
knows this is comfortable, this is uncomfortable, this is comfortable, this is uncomfortable. And so I have to work within an area of struggle, but I have to play with those thresholds. I can't just blow past the thresholds because I have the skill, I have the leverage, I have the ability. I go,
Right.
you can come out of a training session and your horse learned nothing except how to defend themselves better, how to avoid
Hmm.
you
Good point.
sooner,
Hmm.
right? Because if we're not respecting those internal thresholds, whether they're physical or emotional or just a lack of understanding or there's a lack of muscle support. So while the body's developing, another reason we can meet a threshold is our horse just gets unstable. And that's such a foreign
Hmm.
concept for people to even consider. Like, especially when I work with young horses, I go, that's the main reason they blow up is because they don't understand. They easily get unstable when they're learning to carry a rider.
Hmm.
So if we're not sort of working with their threshold of they can only walk this fast, or they can only walk right now and not ready to trot. Like they're not there
Mhm.
yet. And so even though and it was a big humbling experience because I thought in my early years as a trainer, I just had to get better at riding whatever the horse threw at me and have more strategies to get the horse to do what I wanted. And that was the job of a trainer. And I had one of those massive, uncomfortable realizations when I started to really pay more attention to the energy and the movement and the body language of the horse. I go, wow, all I'm doing is imposing myself on this horse.
Those are good words. Am
Yeah,
I imposing my forwardness or am I listening? Yeah, good questions.
yeah. And so it goes back to, is your goal more important than your intention? And my
Mhm.
intention has always been to help horses become better, empower horses, empower
Mhm.
riders, right? And with that intention, navigating the way to the goal is a unique and really creative experience. It's a process because I can't make that happen for somebody else.
Yeah, and
It's
it's interesting when the threshold of the human is quite different than the threshold of the horse. So we're working with, thresholds of both.
yeah. And even the more I learned about the nervous system and how it affects everything throughout the entire use of our body. When I'm dealing with, say, a rider who has a big fear issue, what we're told oftentimes, what I grew up with was just get on, don't let them know you're afraid, push through it, fake it till you make it, right? All of those things, just do it, just get over
Don't let
it.
them know you're afraid. I mean, it's might not be written on your face, but your body language
Your
is
energy
saying it
is
all over again.
broadcasting. Yeah. I go, even whether the human brain knows it or not,
Oh, yeah.
I go, fear, like a fearful rider is just broadcasting that energy. So you can't fake it because that is the language that horses speak.
Right,
And whether we know we're speaking it or not, it's like we're broadcasting that fear. So until we
right,
authentically feel safe, we can't really shift our energy.
right.
It's
Or
not,
that we even recognize what's going on within ourselves.
yeah,
Yeah, because, when I'm working with people, you have to it's like redoing the software. You have to bring the subconscious thought of the movement, maybe it's sit to stand, to the surface to redo that experience. It might be a total subconscious thing that the person's not even aware of.
yeah. No, and I think I know what you mean. Like I will have riders and I'm looking at the rider and the horse is looking at the rider and the horse and I are going, wow, you're really scared. Not in a judgmental way. It's fine.
No,
It's
it's
just to
just a
be
fact.
understood. But the rider's going, I'm fine. I'm fine. I can do it. Of course I can do that.
As they're white
And
knuckling on the
oh, not
reins.
even sometimes in an obvious way. Like sometimes I'll
Right.
even miss it because in my
Right.
humanness, I'm listening to the words the person is saying and I'm forgetting
Yeah.
to read their energy.
Right.
And 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 all of a sudden it's like you can't control your reactions. You can't react in a positive, calm way. So if you take horse instinct and human instinct and both are in
Mhm.
fear, that's just an accident waiting to happen.
I agree.
It just doesn't work very well.
Right.
And so the whole threshold thing is I go, we have to understand as prey animals, horses have different responses to stimulus than we do. They have a whole different kind of psychology, a different survival strategy that's inherent in their DNA. And so we're not going to fight that. We're going to learn to work with that. And we have our sort of predator instincts that are so deep within us, we have to work with them. You never overcome your instincts. They're there to help you
Right.
stay alive, and they're not
Yeah.
under our control. And so when we start to recognize, oh, my instincts are being triggered, or my horse's instincts are being triggered, that's the
Mhm.
moment I call a training opportunity. I go right there. I don't need to get
Yes.
fancy. I need to change how this person or horse is feeling until they show me they feel safe enough to learn something. That's sort of the whole idea
Yeah, and it
behind the learning
and you
frame of mind.
yeah,
Sorry,
you
Mike.
don't know what's gonna trigger it either. It could, like you said, be an emotional thing. It could be a physical thing.
Yeah, it could be a
You
memory
don't
of
know.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has nothing to do. So, like, for example, you go the horse that gets off the trailer all wild-eyed,
Mhm.
right? In that moment, if we really look, we go, okay, this horse is like, we've already blown through the threshold of confidence
Right.
because of the situation. But it's necessary because we had to get our horse from point A to point B in a trailer, so we did the best we
Right.
could, right? That's just a reality of getting things done. But where we can adjust to our horse's threshold is a lot of times people expect my lesson starts in the arena once I'm tacked up and on my horse.
Yes. Yes, yes,
And a lot of
yes.
times, if that's the case with the horse coming off the trailer, I go, the lesson starts right here because this is where the need is,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
if we can let go of that, it's kind of like our predator instinct gives us this tunnel vision. And you can almost see it in the person when that horse comes off the trailer and the person is just like, "Okay, I gotta tie you up. I've gotta put the saddle on." And you're like, "Holy mother of God, wait a
Yeah.
minute."
Everybody slow down. Everybody slow down. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Let's take this teaching moment here.
Yeah, because
Keep
if
everybody
we
safe.
when we do get that tunnel vision, which is part of human instinct, we're
Mhm.
focusing away. We're focusing on our goal. We're focusing on whatever we're hunting for dinner, right? That's
Right.
just part of human instinct. And we often just go, well, I'm going to tie my horse to the trailer and hope my horse settles down.
Yeah.
And I go, that's one strategy. Sometimes it works, right? Or I'm going to hand graze my horse until my horse settles down.
Mm.
So there's a gazillion different strategies. And I go, but when we sort of leave it up to our horse to figure out, if our horse doesn't figure it out, that's when they pull the trailer over. That's when they, pull back or they pull the rope out of our hands or they step
Mhm.
on us or they knock us around or they accidentally run us over because they're not paying attention to us either. So a lot of the risky part of handling horses can be mitigated if we just sort of went, ooh, you're kind of moving away from this calm energy. How do I bring you back? Right
Mhm.
here, right now, with what we've got, right? Not 10 minutes later, because in that
Right.
10 minutes, right, that's where things go sideways,
Mhm.
big time, right? Like sometimes I've had to untie a horse from a trailer and go,
Mm.
let's bring this energy level down. Then let's put the saddle on. Then let's go to the arena. Then let's, start the riding part of the lesson.
Yeah.
If the horse says okay. And that's just a
If
totally different
people
way.
need to understand, yeah.
Yeah, it's a totally different way to say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how far we're going to get today because I'm
Right.
looking at this threshold. And in the horses, like their decision-making ability is sort of binary. It's not complicated. It's either a yes or a no. It's like, yes, I can do that. No, I don't think I can do that.
Mhm.
Yes, I can handle that. No, I can't handle that.
Mhm.
Right. And sometimes, just like our ability to say yes and no, sometimes it's a hard no. or or
There's no maybe.
it's a big effing no, right? And sometimes it's a no thank you. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's sort of a I'm not sure, but I don't think
No,
so.
mhm.
So those are the energy levels I'm talking about. So just like when we use
Right.
words, sort of the tone, the frequency, the volume, the emphasis, all of that gives the word more meaning and we understand it more. And that's what reading the energy is with a horse is sort of, is this extreme? Is it moderate? Is it mild? Is he sort of in between a yes and a no? Is it
Mm.
a is it a hard no? Is it a up yours, this isn't going to happen kind of no? Or is it a yes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
calm energy to me is the horse saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
And as energy leaves that calm state, and I don't mean like brain dead, asleep, shut down calm. I
That's a
mean
good point.
alert, right? The horse is alert, but chill.
Blinking and chewing and breathing and all
Yeah,
those things are important. Not the freeze. Okay, I'll do it. Or the fawn.
right. Or
I'm
even
I'm being the good boy.
like I talked about with Dr. Hancock, that dorsal vagal state, which is kind of new terminology regarding the nervous system, but that dorsal vagal state where there is a sort of calmness when you're so stressed and fearful that you think you're going to die,
Mm,
that the you kind of go into this shutdown mode where you're just okay. I mean, that's a super extreme version, but
right.
when we start over leveraging horses and demanding obedience and using all of our knowledge to get the horse to do something despite how they feel about it, that to me is what leads to that dorsal vagal state of shutdown. They just go,
Right.
okay, I'm so powerless. I'm just going to shut down and cope with whatever you do.
That submission, would you call that submission?
That's why I hate the words in the horse industry. I don't even use the words
I do too.
dominance and submission. And
Hmm.
I often have to point out the difference between obedience and energy. Like even that,
That's a good point.
yeah, even
Yeah.
that can be a big deal or one of those uncomfortable realizations for people. Your horse isn't being disobedient for no reason. Your horse's energy is telling you that there's some fear escalating, or there's some instability physically, or there's some discomfort physically, or there's a memory that has nothing to do with you, but if you don't address it, it's still going to affect you.
Hmm.
If you don't help your horse through it, you're leaving this sort of landmine memory in the nervous system that you might step
Right.
on and not know anything about.
Right.
But the horse will show you. So that's where I go, I half the time I don't know the reason until later, but I'm reading the energy right now.
Right. Yeah.
And I think, like you've talked about, working with people's bodies, where do you run into thresholds? Like, how do you know you've hit a threshold when you're helping somebody with Alexander technique?
Um, when it comes to riders, it's usually when I put them on the horse stand because although the horse stand is stationary,
It's made of
it's still
wood,
it's made of wood, but just that stimulus
of being in the
of
riding position.
yeah, brings up a lot of thresholds. And usually the first and I what was interesting is it's great to be able to show the client off the horse that that strategy that they're using to ride is in their daily life. It's not just when they get
On the
on the
horse.
saddle. Yeah. So one of the big thresholds I see is the gripping of the thighs.
Mm,
And that just goes back to letting go of the psoas and connecting the pelvis to the torso instead of thinking that the pelvis goes with the legs. I mean, that's just huge in our industry of riding.
And so how do you know? Because I know you do hands-on. So do people
right?
tell you, or are you reading the energy, or are you feeling something in the body when you feel like I can't go farther than something right now? Like that's sort of when I say threshold, I go, despite how much information I want to share, there's
Hmm.
only so much information, whether it's physical, verbal, emotional, it
Hmm.
doesn't matter. There's only so much information that this person or this horse can absorb right now.
Right. And they may come to getting on the horse stand, maybe the last time they were on their horse, they came off. So it can be an emotional trigger threshold. I can see it on their face. Or like you'd see in a horse, it's that freeze look,
Yeah.
like, wow, this is bringing up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I
So
find it fascinating that the human brain cannot control the human body any better than we can control horses. It's like
that's a good point.
our body kind of has a mind of its own.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it, it's probably like horses. That's what has saved us. If we have always had to think about how to get out of a chair,
We wouldn't be doing much.
we wouldn't be alive today as a species. I mean, so the reason those systems are set up is that we can get up and down without thinking about it if we're being attacked by something. Granted, I don't know how that applies today, but um, that instinct is in there,
Yeah,
and
it's still in there.
it's still in
Yeah.
there. And we have to learn to, what I've found is allow it, accept it, and have tools to, manufacture going a different direction.
What do you mean manufacture going a different direction?
So that the person learns that number one, I found you can't stop it from coming up. It's a muscle memory. It's stored somewhere.
Mhm.
And to give people tools to say, "Oh, okay, there you are again. How
Ah,
about we try this, or this? How about if I, instead of thinking about it, can I bring myself back into the room and look around and say, "Oh, I'm here, everything's okay." And I'm sure the horses go through the same thing. Just
I think one of the things that comes up over and over and over working in rehab, whether it's no matter how well the horse is doing or poorly, one of the things I end up teaching a lot is that sort of step back and observe. Because,
it's the listening. Yes, the listening and watching that people just that's very hard for them to do that even at the point of rain contact. It should be a listening device.
mhm. No,
Yeah,
on
where we
multiple layers. And it's that if we can just pause long enough
yeah.
to observe without judgment and without making the horse
Mhm.
pointing the finger,
Mhm.
blaming any of that, just really step back and be an observer for a moment. All of a sudden, every single person I've worked with can read the horse's body language, energy, see the movement, but not until they take time to observe. And that's not part of our traditional training at all.
And it's not really part of being a predator. If you think about it, I mean, we observe in are we what way are we observing? Are we, like you said, without judgment? That's critical. It's like, isn't that interesting? Instead of, oh, what the heck are you doing now?
Right. Or trying to control it instantly.
Yeah,
Mm,
shut it
mm.
down instead. Well, I granted you need to shut some things down if it's getting
Sorry.
dangerous to the human, but what do you do if you try to shut down that expression? You really need to go through the expression and question the expression and see what's on the other side of it.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
and I always sort of see it like a like a boxing match is what it turns into between horse and rider. And I feel like the referee going, okay, each one of you to your corners.
Yep.
You
Time out.
over here, you over there. Everybody's
Time out.
safe, right? Let's put some distance, physical distance in this
Yeah.
situation. And then let's take a minute to just let the energy come down a notch and
Good point.
observe, right? And just that, adding that into teaching people how to train their own horses, I go, that's been huge because all of a sudden we start to see things in different ways. We start to understand more. We make better decisions because we start to see, oh, this, my horse isn't doing this to me personally.
Good point.
But that's kind of our first instinct is my horse is making me look bad, my horse is
Yeah.
being disobedient, my horse is being lazy or stubborn or not putting effort into it, and they're a bad employee. It's like, so I'm gonna use the carrot or the stick and I'm gonna motivate them. And it's like there's another layer underneath that, right? So
Mhm.
do they feel safe with you?
Mhm.
That's a really interesting question that we can, like, in that pause, observe our horse and go, is my horse scared? Is my horse angry? Right? Am I asking too much, or are we just in sort of that learning zone where there's going to be some struggle, some
Right.
challenge, but where's the temperature level going? Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it going up steadily? Is it going up and down? And that's sort of what I'm always assessing to know if what I'm asking a horse or rider to do is appropriate. It's not right or wrong. It's just, is it
It's
appropriate?
timing and feel. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's timing and feel. And that is something the humans don't usually go to first.
No,
They're
and there's a
yeah.
learning curve just with methodology and horse handling.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point.
I think
And
put your mic up a little. You got really soft. There you
I
go.
think that I don't know, the more I've more into the horse world I am of the situations of the horses and riders is there isn't a lot of time spent on just basic handling skills, you know.
Or observing and thinking through things rather
Mhm.
than we hear the more leg, heels down, make
Oh
them
my
do it,
gosh.
use the whip, get spurs, use this bit. Like there's all of these sort of quick fixes without really taking time to step back and analyze what is the horse trying to communicate to me? Like,
The
why am
why.
I even
Yeah.
having this issue? And even if I don't know why, I can look at my horse and go, wow, my horse is chronically tense,
Mm,
chronically anxious, chronically unstable and struggling with whatever I'm doing. How do I get that to turn around? And then all of a sudden, different training strategies come to mind.
right.
Different timing or feel or what we ask the horse to do. All of that changes when you're looking at, does my horse even feel safe? Right? Or is my horse unstable or maybe not fit enough to do what I'm asking? Or me, am I not fit enough? Am
Right.
I not stable enough?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm dealing with this cold.
Mm.
Sorry for all the extra coughing and noise.
It's going around.
So
Yeah, I mean,
anything else you want to add to like thresholds that you come across in your work?
I come across, especially with riders, is they hit the threshold and they want to force through it, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
good one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I see that in riders just because, and I'm not saying all riders are type A, but it seems to be that way, just to use language that people understand. the push through and get to the other side, instead of, like you said, pausing and asking the why and experimenting with some healthy choices, um, instead of, oh, I just got to get to the other side. Well, yeah, we all got to get to the other side of the threshold, but like you said, it's the how. How are we are we getting there in a healthy way? Are we,
Are we
or are
getting
we?
there by building trust with our horse, or are
Hmm.
we demolishing the trust and the relationship in
Right.
order to get there? Those are
And
two,
wonder why when we go somewhere that the horse doesn't feel safe,
right?
or we lose that quality when, and we've talked about this before, the threshold for the horse may be at the mounting block.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And are we recognizing that? Or are we getting to the mounting block and the horse is fine, but the human hasn't checked in to what's going on with them
Right.
at the mounting block? Like, am I present? Am I actually here? How am I using myself? Check in with my horse. Hey, how you doing?
Or
You
even
know.
with even with unconfident riders or riders that have a fear issue, it's like each step up the mounting block or each part of the process,
Yeah.
I'll ask them to give me their butterfly meter. Like,
That's a good one.
how many butterflies are buzzing around in that tummy of yours?
Yeah.
And as soon as we hit, let's say five max. So if we're at 3 or 4 butterfly factor, maybe we need to pause there and just
Yeah.
let the energy come back down.
Or
And
how
once
about
we're
giving,
at
yeah,
1 or 2 butterflies, we could go
yeah.
forward.
And that's okay. It's
Hmm.
okay that we have a choice not to move forward at that moment. That's that pushing through the threshold thing. Oh, I'm feeling this, but I'm still going to do it. Well,
Well, and
hmm.
I think what you're describing too is the human fight flight response
Mhm.
is, excuse me, our fight response is, sorry about this, you guys. I thought I had my throat cleared. Um, we call them, like you said, type A's that want to push through it. That's more of a fight response to go
Mhm.
towards, to push through it, to muscle our way, to make it happen,
Mhm.
not factoring in our horse as our partner. We're just going to get it done,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
But there's
exactly.
also the human flight response, which
Mhm.
is the person who lets their horse call the shots, who the horse walks all over them. The horse is unsafe to handle because they don't even consider where the human is at all. It's like they just ignore their human because every time there's a little bit of a threshold, the human flight response is to back off completely, to avoid. Like, how many times have you heard, oh, I don't ride my horse on windy days because they're
Right.
terrified that they can't control their horse, so they just avoid. So there's a
Right.
whole lot of avoidance behavior in
Good point.
riders, which is
Mhm.
also an expression of fear that leads to leaving the horse in a state of fear. And so until we sort of check in and go, am I meeting this situation with a fight response, trying to push through it, get her done? Or am I meeting this situation with a flight response? Oh, my
Mhm.
horse is tired. Oh, my horse doesn't feel good. Oh, my horse isn't in the mood. Oh, we can't do this today because it's 10 degrees too cold or 10 degrees too hot, or it's,
Mhm.
the conditions aren't perfect or the footing's not right. Like the footing, my God, the footing gets blamed a lot, right? Or there's somebody else in the arena, or my
Oh,
neighbor
yeah.
is creating a problem. I got to go fix my neighbor, or I can't do this. And all of those are sort of fight flight
Mhm.
responses in the human. And that's where we always tend to do too much or too little.
Right.
And so knowing our own personal thresholds, if we're honest about them, then they actually go away. We actually move through the threshold if we respect the fact that we have one.
Right. And it's that presence. It's a presence of being present to acknowledge all of that in both of us, the horse and the rider. And like you said, without judgment, just like this is it. This is the way it is.
This is just the way it is right now.
It's just the way it is right now. And going from there.
I think that's the other thing that comes up is when people feel fear, they almost can't imagine. Like when I'm dealing with safety issues, which is where I liaison a lot between horse and rider, right? So
Hmm.
when it's become sort of a problem between the horse and rider that's really become unsafe, then I'll work with the horse and then show the rider how to work with the horse the same way.
Hmm.
And they'll say to me, like, they can't imagine getting on their horse anymore because they have such a high level of fear, and so does the horse.
Right.
So a lot of times they want me to get on and, I don't know, somehow magically make the horse not afraid, obedient enough
Or whatever.
that
That
the
riding
horse,
takes care of it.
yeah. And so I always tell people, I go, when you have authentically moved through your fear threshold, what you feel inside is that you're dying to get on your horse. You want
Hmm.
to get on. I said, that's the opposite of fear. Nobody has to push you to do it, and you don't have to push yourself to do it.
Right. And
But
that's
when,
okay. And when that time is when that time is.
and people can't imagine it's ever going to come from where they are.
Mm,
And that's sort of the depression or where people give up on their horse or they feel like it's wasted effort. They don't enjoy it anymore. And they just can't imagine feeling any different about that particular horse. And every single time without fail, if the horse and rider stick it out and we make our way back to feeling, rebuilding the trust, feeling safe, that same person is like, I can't believe it. I can't wait to work with my horse. I can't wait to get
right.
on my horse. I'm really
Right.
looking forward to this. But from the place of fear, people can't, they have a very hard time imagining that that could ever happen, that it would
That's
ever be
mhm.
possible to feel that way about that horse. And I think it's sad because it really takes away from, excuse me, learning potential. Like there's a whole journey in there if you're willing to just take the next few steps.
Mhm.
There's an empowering journey in there between a horse and a rider where the rider is going to learn new skills, have new understanding in order to arrive at that place where they authentically go, I want to ride this horse.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it doesn't happen for everybody, but most of the time, if we take a step back and sort of really work with the thresholds that are there, we just call them what
Mhm.
they are, recognize them. There it is. How do we gently sort of work through this one? How do we work
Right.
through the next one? How do we work through the next one? And then it feels like all of a sudden I have this different horse, or I'm a different person, or I just don't have the problems I used to think I had.
And we are. I mean, we are different. We, those changes we're evolving into something different.
But I think
And
it happens so slowly.
yeah, we don't notice it until we notice it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah,
It's
and
like,
sometimes it takes a old familiar situation
yeah,
where
yeah,
suddenly you're handling it in a new way
yeah.
to really realize how far you've come.
Or that old situation didn't come up again.
Didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
You got on the other side. It's kind of like my big mare riding her, because we used to call her airs above the ground because that's where she spent most of her time. And I'm on her, and the UPS truck is going streaming by. The dogs are chasing the UPS truck, and she's right there with me. And I went,
When
huh,
did that happen?
when did that? Wow. And I didn't have to ride through it.
Exactly.
It just was, she was present. I was present. That didn't matter. And we were fine.
Yeah. And what I realized is it makes the difference between training that sticks, quote unquote
Oh.
training,
Hmm.
training that sticks, and feeling like you're always starting over with the same horse, having the same problem for
Right.
literally decades. Like,
That yeah, I get that.
hmm
I totally get that. I've been there, done that.
And when we're working with these unique to the individual, whether it's individual horse, individual rider, when we're working with these unique thresholds, the thresholds are actually overcome and it's a new skill.
It
And
is.
so you don't have to go back and repeat it a gazillion times. And sometimes at a certain level, what really surprised me was taking the horse into a new situation or suddenly having to deal with something unfamiliar. If I've been working with authentic thresholds, that's where I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Oh, my horse didn't react negatively, or my horse didn't like that. Like this time, my horse got off the trailer, calm, cool, ready to go to work
We're
instead
ready.
of
Yeah. I feel
getting off
safe.
yeah, yeah, instead of getting off the trailer with all of that, rah, right?
Mhm.
And that to me is a relationship issue where I think a lot of people I talk to, they think if my horse gets off the trailer badly like that, I need X number of trailer rides for my horse to figure it out. And I go, what you
Interesting.
really need is for your horse to feel understood because you're listening to the thresholds and trust you in a new situation. I go, that's what makes you adaptable and safe in unforeseen circumstances with your horse.
Right.
But I go, you can repeat, and you've been there, I've been there. You can repeat that trailer loading process thousands of times, and
Mhm.
some horses never get any better at it.
Yeah.
So I go,
My
what's the
trailer
missing
loading
piece?
got much better with this big mare when I worked more on the thresholds not involving the trailer.
Yeah, because they come up everywhere all day,
Yeah,
all the time.
everywhere. Yep.
So you go, here's my training opportunity. Here's my training opportunity. And then when you go to the trailer or you go for the trailer ride, there's like a base of trust
Mhm.
where the horse knows I can trust my human because my human is always helping me feel
Right.
better, feel
Not
more
trying to push me.
physically
Yeah.
or emotionally. It doesn't matter. But that trust that develops is what we carry with us into new situations with our horses
Mhm.
that makes it manageable. But there's still a really strong sort of mentality or paradigm that if you want your horse to trailer load well, you better put that horse in the trailer every day, leave the trailer in the field for your horse to go in and out of, and magically your horse will one day figure it out. And I go, some do, some don't.
Some do, some don't.
Mhm. Or the same thing with, I want a safe trail horse. So they think if the horse has been on the trail 100 hours, he should be a safe trail horse. And I go, that is no guarantee whatsoever because it's way too dynamic. But if you have a
Right.
horse that trusts you out on the trails, you can come across all kinds of unplanned events and know how to navigate through that.
Mhm.
And that's what makes a safe trail horse is that relationship between the horse and rider.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Nope. Sounds
I,
good to me.
I think we can wrap it up before I go through another coughing episode. So thanks for joining us, everyone, for another episode of the Horse Geeks podcast. And I hope you go out with your horse
Mhm.
today, tomorrow, and just start to notice.
Mhm.
Start to notice where's my horse's energy level, right? Is it calm? Is it moving away from calm? How do I feel? Am I calm? Am I moving away from calm?
Right.
Right? Am I even starting off not calm because I'm thinking about that person who just pissed me off on my way to the barn?
Yeah, there you go. That's another whole podcast.
Exactly. So even if we like today just sort of talked about watching the energy level, it's something that we all actually can read. It's
Yes, we
not a
can.
big mystery. It's not hard for people to
Mm-mm.
figure out. I go, I don't know how we know it, but if we just slow things down enough to observe, we all see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So thanks once again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Horse Geeks podcast. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.